Hey, I'm Justin Coleman. I'm going to talk about welding safety. So imagine this, there's three workers that need to make a repair to the top of an 80-foot storage tank. They need to repair a broken flange by welding a temporary metal bracket onto it. Well, this storage tank is used to house recycled water and fiber waste at a packaging plant. What nobody took into account was that the organic mixture inside the tank would host anaerobic bacteria. When those bacteria fed on the organic material, it released hydrogen gas, which is very flammable. Unknown to the workers, they began their weld, and the sparks created during the welding process entered the broken flange into the tank and ignited the flammable vapors inside. The tank exploded, the top was thrown off, and those three workers were thrown 80 feet below to their death. That's sort of an extreme case, but incidents with welding happen every day, and we want to prevent all of them. That was an actual incident in 2008 in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. So, of course, welding is the process of joining two metals. There's about 185,000 welders in the United States, so there's a lot of them that we need to protect. Some general health hazards: metal fume is produced when solid state or semi-solid state is going to vapor state, and you have small particles suspended in the air that can enter through the nose or mouth, be inhaled, and they can potentially be deposited into the lungs and cause adverse health effects. Toxic gases can be produced during the weld. Radiation, infrared and ultraviolet, UV. Although you can experience UV radiation from walking outside on a sunny day, can be present in larger quantities during welding. And then, of course, noise. Welding can be a noisy process, so you may have to look at doing noise surveys to determine if you need to implement a hearing conservation program or not. Acute health hazards, not as widely known probably, but there's pulmonary edema, which is where the lung wall is damaged, really a result of cadmium fume exposure. Photokeratitis, or arc eye, is a sensation of sand in the eyes, very uncomfortable, usually seen after a work shift, like overnight, and it's from the welder looking at the weld. Don't have to worry about it as much today because we have better welding helmets and hoods that the welders don't have to take up and down, off and on all day to look at the weld. Now we have auto darkening filters that darken automatically. Metal fume fever is another one, mainly from magnesium, zinc, and copper alloys. Fume exposure. It was also called the Monday morning illness in the old days because the workers would be exposed all week, and then there was a latent period where they wouldn't see the symptoms until they really returned to work on Monday. With better ventilations and controls in place, really don't see that too much present day either. One high-profile concern today is hexavalent chromium, or hex chrome. That can be created when welding. Welding on stainless steel produces it. That's a high-profile item because it's a human carcinogen and causes lung cancer. So there's a very strict set of requirements that you have to abide by if you have that in your workplace. And then obviously atmospheric hazards, like I mentioned with the tank explosion, flammability, and confined spaces. Those can really attribute to many recipes for disaster. So you have to do things like direct reading, air monitoring before entering a space like that, or even performing a weld near a space like that. The good thing is that we can control all these exposures The main one and most common is just general dilution ventilation, which is your regular air exchange rate on your shop floor. High walls, high ceilings, that helps because you've got more volume, more room for contaminants to escape and go above the worker. If that doesn't work, you may have to look at local exhaust ventilation, which is basically a vacuum that goes directly to the point of the weld, and it sucks in contaminants into this local exhaust so that they never reach the worker's breathing zone to harm. And then welding curtains, that's really for reflectance, incidental light rays from, people welding and other people walking nearby to keep that flash from their eyes. And then welding blankets to put down over flammables so that they don't catch on fire. If these don't work, the engineer controls, if those don't work or they don't completely work, you may still have to look at PPE options or personal protective equipment. One would be earplugs or hearing protection. If your noise surveys and noise sampling dosimetry reveals high levels, then you'll definitely need to implement the appropriate hearing protectors into the workplace. Shaded eye protection, shaded safety glasses for people walking by, or welders helpers, and then of course welding helmets and hoods for your actual welders. Auto darkening today is really good because, like I said, the welders don't have to flip it up to see the weld and get it started and then flip the hood down. All they have to do is start the weld and then it darkens immediately. Protective clothing, you want your welders to have natural fibers, cotton and wool, because they burn clean and flash off if they do catch on fire. Synthetics are a no-no because they can burn and melt to the skin. Respiratory protection, you may have to look at like a combination welding hood and airline respirator that provides clean air to the user right there in the breathing zone. So that's really a lot of the just high level hazards with welding, and also a lot of their control measures. It pays to do your research up front, and with a hot process like welding, stay cool and stay safe.